Hi, my name is Robert. This video is designed to give you step-by-step detailed instructions on completing the task at hand. Please read the comments in the About section of this video. It has valuable information and updates. My YouTube channel has a disclaimer video that I encourage you to watch. And please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you found what you're looking for. Thank you very much for watching. This vehicle here has an issue with noise on the belt side of the motor. So here's the noise. There's a ratcheting noise and a squealing noise. I hope it's one thing instead of two. Well, it looks like I may have found my problem. I come down here and I got coolant dripping down here off of the oil filter. So that's an indication that it's more than likely the water pump that's leaking. I can also check the reservoir or the radiator level to see if that level's low. But with coolant dripping off that motor, off that oil filter, there's a good chance that the water pump's about to give loose. Okay, I'm about to replace the timing belt on this 1999 Mercury Villager. I'm pretty sure it's the same as a Nissan Quest. The problem is the water pump is leaking, and the only way to get to the water pump mounting bolts is to remove the lower timing belt cover. And if you remove the lower timing belt cover, you might as well go ahead and replace the timing belt and all of that stuff too. The vehicle has just over 200,000 miles, so all that stuff is due anyway. It's supposed to be done every 100,000, I'm pretty sure. It was done about 70,000 ago, so this is not a far-fetched thing to do. Really not sure why they locked the timing belt cover over top of the water pump mounting bolts, because the timing belt is not turning the water pump, but nonetheless that's what they did. So here we go. First thing you want to do is jack the car up. You could take the passenger wheel off if you want. You don't have to, but you need to break that crank bolt loose. Don't have to remove it. Just take it loose before you do anything else. If you can't get that loose, you're not going to do anything else anyway. So I had to actually go and purchase a impact gun with 330 foot-pounds of torque on it to get that crank bolt loose, and it took about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes to crack it loose. So you do need that. Then you need a pulley puller from a parts store as well, which is a renter tool. So you'll need those special tools before you can get anything going. Once you get that crank bolt loose, go ahead and remove the fan belts, remove the upper timing belt cover, align your timing marks, then remove the harmonic balancer, remove the lower timing belt cover, and take off the belt and that kind of stuff. If you notice any oil leaking down there, you'll want to get a front crank seal, and just do the other things that you'll need to do to complete the job. Here's the tools and equipment I use to do this job. You want some gloves, liquid wrench, a funnel, a couple razor blades. I had those long bolts to help with my harmonic balancer. I used a whiteout to mark timing marks, make sure they were clear. That socket, I think, fits the crank. It might be like a 28 millimeter or something like that. It's 11/16, so whatever equates over to millimeters off of that. That little Allen wrench, I think, is a 3/16. Had a magnet, hammer, 1/4 inch with 8, 10, 12, 13 deep and shallow. The 1/4 inch screwdriver. I had the 3/8 inch with the 10, 12, 14, and a couple deep short extensions. The 1/2 inch drive was for moving the crank around. Long needle nose pliers for the hose clamps, torque wrench, filler gauge. It was advisable to use a filler gauge trying to adjust the tensioner. Flat tip screwdriver, long Phillips screwdriver, adjustable jaw wrench, and I had to go buy bolts, 8 millimeter, 1.25 by 40 millimeter, and then those washers there, and then those are crush washers. what's that thing called again? That little pad that they put on beds and under pet.
Shuck.
It's called a shuck. Anyway, I put that under the vehicle to catch the coolant splashes so I don't have to mop it up later. Rag, something to put your old coolant in. And I use ramps. I didn't pull the tire off, or you could use ramps or jack stands. I was able to do the whole job with the ramps. Alright, to do the job, I needed a couple supplies and specialty tools. One specialty tool was a Harmonic balancer puller. It's a loaner tool, $30 out, $30 back. It looked like that, multiple things to use on it. Get you a Harmonic balancer puller. You're not going to get this job done without it. You also need to either purchase or rent an impact gun. I borrowed, rather, an impact gun. It wasn't strong enough, so I got this one here from Harbor Freight. Cost me $130 minus 25%. I needed this crank seal. Harmonic crankshaft seal was leaking. I got this from the parts store, SKF. I have the tensioner. This belt has one tensioner, no idler. Timing belt, water pump. The water pump we got, the housing was thicker than the original water pump housing, so I ended up getting longer bolts as well. The new water pump is Bosch. The original water pump is Aisin, or however you pronounce it. At any rate, the new water pump housing is thicker than the original water pump housing. So I would actually lose 2 threads on my bolts, which is something I didn't want to do. So these, I believe, are 8mm, 1.25 thread count, 35mm long. So I went and found new bolts at Home Depot, which are 8mm, 125, 40mm. And then I got these bolts. For some reason they have a lock washer and a flat washer on them, so I went and bought washers as well so that I can install this water pump. The only problem is at this one location here, that bolt has some sort of receiver thread in there, I believe, for the cover. So that one's going to have to be the short one, and the rest of them are going to be the new longer bolts. So I got 5 bolts. I'm going to use an old one and go from there. Let me figure out how I'm going to break this crank loose. Alright, this crank bolt is not going to come off without an impact gun because there's no way to hold the harmonic balancer still. What I've heard some people do is put a wrench on there, lock the wrench in place, and bump the starter and let that break the nut loose. I might have to try that. Okay, I got a breaker bar on the bolt. I got that wedge under the CV axle. I'm gonna go bump the starter, see if that knocks that bolt loose. Okay, I couldn't break that loose. So my buddy brought me his handheld electric impact wrench. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to break that loose. It should come loose counterclockwise. So here I go. So I went and purchased this impact gun from Harbor Freight, and I sprayed the bolt down a lot with some PB Blaster, and after about 2 or 3 minutes the bolt finally did come loose. So the crank bolt is loose. Next, I'm gonna drain the coolant into a pan. Either remove the lower radiator hose or open the petcock if you could find one on the bottom of the radiator. I did find a drain cock on the radiator down there. It's a mess, but it is down there. So open that, and I'm trying to catch all the radiator fluid that I can from it. Now on this vehicle, it doesn't have an all-inclusive serpentine belt. It has 3 fan belts. So I pulled the fan belt from the air conditioner compressor. I released the tension off this bolt here, cranked the tension off of that, and removed that belt. So to remove a belt, you find a belt tensioner, which in this case for the air conditioning belt, it was this bolt here. When I took that bolt loose, it allowed tension to come off of the belt so I can slide the belt off. And that's normally identifiable because the other side of it has a arm. Let me see if I can get the camera in here. Has an arm in there that adjusts with the long bolt. You see that gold bolt in there? So as I turn that bolt, it would take the belt loose. Anyway, right there in the middle through that crack is the tensioner bolt. Now the next belt I have here is running the alternator, and this is the tensioner for it. So I take this bolt loose and I start screwing that nut until that tension comes off of this fan belt till I can get it loose. So let me break that loose, looks like a 14 millimeter, then start taking it loose, looks like a 12 millimeter. Now I got the tension bolt loose and it's moved a little bit. The belt is loose. However, sometimes you'll have to take the mounting bolt loose to help it pivot loose enough so that you can get the slack in the belt that you need to get it off. Okay, before you take the belt off the water pump, it's good to break those 10 millimeter bolts loose on that water pump pulley, and that way you can get those bolts out. Next, I'm going to take the belt off of the water pump, and from what I could tell, this tensioner roller over there is what's keeping the tension around that belt. So I'm going to release the tension off that roller there and then crank that bolt until I crank that tensioner roller down and release the tension off of that belt to remove the belt from the water pump. Okay, I loosened that nut a little bit. It was 14 millimeter. Then I came and started turning this nut here, which is a 12 millimeter, and the tightening action actually loosens the belt. I got the water pump belt loose, and as you can see, just relieving the pressure off of that is causing that water pump to leak down off of the oil filter here. Now, that's the water pump pulley there, and the water pump mounting bolts and everything appears to be under that cover, which there's a cover up above that looks like it has to come off before that cover can. So it looks like I got a Chinese jigsaw puzzle here that I must start dealing with. So first thing we're going to do is try to remove this bracket that's in front of that cover, then remove that cover. Without further ado, I'm going to pull these 3 bolts out of this pulley here, the air conditioning pulley, and pull that off. Looks like it's only holding on by 3 bolts. Now I'm going to go ahead and take those off. Okay, I got the pulley off the water pump. But next I'm going to take this upper radiator hose off. It's got a clamp there and a clamp back there. Next I'm going to take this bypass coolant hose off. It goes from there down to there. I reached under this way and broke that hose loose, and there's a lot of coolant came out, so I got the pan down under it to catch it. Then I twisted it off the top here. Now I have better access to more of this upper timing belt cover that I'm removing. Okay, I removed 7 bolts from this upper cover, but I'm going to try to work it out and up out of the top of this engine. If not, I'll try to work it out the bottom. I'll let you know in a second. I was able to jigsaw it and get it out this way past the distributor. So these are the screws that's supposed to be in it. It's supposed to have 8, but I only pulled 7 out. You need to align the timing in line with the marks up top on the cam sprockets, and then mark everything so you'll know if anything moves when you take that belt off to replace it. Now, to align the timing, you put the socket back on this crank bolt and you turn it clockwise until all of your marks align. So I've got it aligned. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you where the marks are. And these motors are not timed by top dead center. They're aligned by marks. Now that the bolt's out, the timing is aligned. I marked the timing stuff there. And let me show you the timing marks up top. And there's the timing mark on the intake cam, I believe it is, the one on the front. It's got a little dimple in there, and I put some white out on it. And then on the cover behind it, there's a dimple there that I put white out on. So the front cam is aligned. The rear cam is hard to see, so I actually put different marks on it on the front of the cover. There it is. I put a little mark on the cam sprocket and on the cover there. But if that stays in focus, back here, you'll see the orange mark with the dimple there, and then there's a spot on the cover behind there that's aligned too, but it's hard to see. So I marked it up front here where I can make sure they stay in line when I take this belt off. These motors are not timed tap dead center. They're marked by, they're timed by marks. So you want to keep these things on the marks. Now there's probably also a mark on this crank behind this harmonic balancer. Of course you can't see that with the harmonic balancer on. So I marked the harmonic balancer there, and then I marked the harmonic balancer on the lower timing belt cover there. So I tried to wiggle the harmonic balancer off and it wouldn't budge, so I had to go to an auto parts store and rent a harmonic balancer puller. Here's the harmonic balancer puller kit. I got this from Pete Boys, the owner of the vehicle that I'm helping do this has an account with them. They rented it for $29 or something like that, and it has a lot of adapters and stuff in it that you use to pull these things off, and it's got instructions and description there, and here is the multiple tools there. So let me try to get this in place so you see how that goes on, and try to get this harmonic balancer off. Okay, I got the harmonic balancer in place. The screws supplied with it didn't seem to go into the little holes that I have in it, so I had a couple that fit in there with shanks and washers on them, so I screwed those in place. Then I screwed the long shaft in there, and as I tightened up these other screws a little bit, you might be able to see in there that the harmonic balancer is starting to slide off the shaft because my little white marks on there are moving. So let me continue to get this harmonic balancer off so I can make some progress on getting this job done. So basically you put 2 screws in the end on this one. I put the pin in it, and then you drive this big bolt. You could put a wrench on that to crank that in. As you crank that in, it pulls the harmonic balancer off. So let me go ahead and put something on the end of this and keep cranking that in so the harmonic balancer can come off. Okay, after working it halfway off with the tool, I was able to grab it with 2 hands and slide it off. So here's your harmonic balancer removed, and got a little bit of damage on it, but it ain't no damage that I did. And then there's your inner timing belt cover that needs to come the rest of the way off, and the crank seals behind there somewhere that appears to be leaking a little bit. So make sure you really watch how this stuff comes off so you can put it back on right. And let me try to slide this cover off the bottom. Alright, the cover did pull off, so now I'm going to pull this little washer looking thing off of the crankshaft, and then you'll see the crankshaft sprocket behind it. And this is the cover laying on the ground. It feel like it's got some kind of rubber gasket in there that you want to make sure doesn't get damaged, keeps dust and dirt out from it. Now that slides off. Make sure you be careful and keep the orientation of it. Heck, it won't come off until I turn it. I had to turn it over a certain way. So anyway, that's the crank. I'm gonna look for a mark on it and mark it before I take the belt off. Alright, this car didn't have an idler roller, But there's the tensioner roller there with a mechanical tensioner. So you have to learn how to put tension on that thing so that it's tight when you put it on. Be careful taking that off. Make sure you get it back on right. And let me look and see if I can see marks on this crank. Okay, down in this corner of the crank mark, there's a little notch there, and it corresponds with the dimple in that crank there. So now I'm going to take that bolt loose off of the roller tensioner and slide this belt off, put the new one on, and try to make sure I get tension back on this roller right. Okay, I put a 14mm ratchet on that nut, pulled that nut loose, and I was able to swivel this tensioner roller loose. A washer just came off, so be careful what you pull off of there. Another washer's there, and it looks like some kind of shaft. So be careful pulling all this stuff out, because all that stuff's got to go back in there, and there's some kind of spring in there. So I don't really see how that spring was in there. Nonetheless, I got to try to figure it out to get it back on right. So I'm going to take that spring. I got another washer there. So I got two washers, this spring. But let me look at my new one so I can get this stuff back on right. And there's a shaft that this stuff came off of. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this belt off, and I'm going to try to change the seal behind this crank because it's dripping a little bit there. Next, I'm going to just slide this belt off of this crank pulley, and it feel like it fell off the exhaust cam, and it's off the intake cam. So that's the timing belt off. Now I'm going to pull this, see if this pulls off easy, which it does, and you can see the oil dripping off the bottom of it. I'm going to try to replace that seal behind there. Get this off of here. Now it looks like there's a cover behind it. Remember the position on that so I can get that back on right if it comes off. Let me work on getting this off of here. Oh, it has to be turned to come off. Now there's the seal back there. The best way to get these seals out is stick a screw in them and jerk them out with a screw in them, maybe one or two places, then slide the new one in place. But I'm going to set the new one in place to make sure it's the same size seal that's going to fit. That concludes part 1 of 3. Look at the comments in the About section and find links to part 2 and part 3 of this timing belt series. If you feel that this information was useful, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can subscribe to my channel so that you will get notifications of future videos that I post. You can follow me on Twitter, and if you need to contact me directly, please visit my website. And if you have any questions, leave them below, and someone or myself will reply to them. Again, thank you very much for watching.